Welcome to episode 193 of the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. This is Melisa Lieberman, and today I'm so excited to talk with you about this topic. It might be a little bit confronting, but I think it's important for you to hear, and that is we're going to be talking about being in control of your consulting business results. You being in control of your consulting business results. And I want to share with you how you can be in control, fully in control of your consulting business results, even when you think the external things are a factor, like the economy or the time of year or that kind of thing. So that's what we're here for today, is to help you to see how you can be fully in control, even when the external factors feel like they're not in your favor. The reason why we're doing this here today is I've noticed a common theme, and it might be the time of year or the economy or the uncertainty, especially coming out of the US elections. All of those things seem to be kind of bubbling up and creating this scenario where I've heard from so many consultants, and you might be facing this as well, where we feel like our results are not in our control. The economy is influencing our results, or the likelihood of our ideal clients engaging us this time of year are influencing our results or suppressing our results. And so that's why I want to really dig into this today. So to help you to unlock where you have more control over your business than you realize. So the agenda that we're going to dive into is number one, really helping you to see that this feeling of being out of control, you're not alone. It's very common. And I'll share with you some of the things I've been hearing from consultants, and a lot of them may sound familiar to you. You may resonate with them. I think it's really important just to recognize that this is a common thread and that other people are facing what you might be struggling with right now as well. You're not alone. And then we're going to talk about why you're feeling out of control. And it might be surprising to you, maybe not the reason why you think it is. And then I'll share with you a tool you can leverage to create more control in your business over your results, more control over your pipeline, more control over how many proposals you're being requested for, ultimately how many deals you're closing, what your revenue is, all of that type of control. You'll be able to leverage this tool I'm sharing with you here in a moment. And then we'll wrap up with how to put today's episode into action. The companion resource, before we dive into this topic of feeling in control, the companion resource that goes with today's episode is the Consultant's Business Health Check. So it is an online assessment that helps you to walk through 14 key areas in your business to get a really good understanding of what you might be missing or what the areas of opportunity are for you to optimize, and get you a really strong report that then you can leverage to start figuring out what your priorities will be for the rest of this year and going into next year, and give yourself a bit of a roadmap. So you can go take that at icassessment.com. It's the two letters IC for independent consultant, assessment.com. If you've taken it before, I would strongly recommend you take it again and compare your results quarter over quarter. Or if you haven't yet taken it, go take it now and create a baseline for yourself. Even if all the questions don't feel as relevant, maybe you're newer to consulting, it's so important to have this type of baseline and also to have a practice in place where you're evaluating your business on a quarterly basis and really digging in to figure out where your biggest areas of opportunity lie. Okay, so with that, let's now talk about your business results and where they might be feeling out of your control. Tell me if any of these sound familiar to you. You might have said them out loud, or you might be thinking them. Things like the economy isn't good, or clients aren't buying this time of year. If you're listening to this in the real time, it's in November. And so it's so common to think, okay, clients aren't going to buy any consulting until, Q1 of next year. If you're listening to this in the summer, you might be saying the same thing to yourself. Clients aren't buying in the summer. We have to wait to the fall. This is a very common thing to be thinking, even if, regardless of the time of year that it is. Another thing that I've been hearing frequently lately is clients just want free advice. It won't turn into an engagement. They won't move forward. They just want they want to pick my brain and aren't interested in engaging me. Or clients aren't engaging independent consultants in general. I hear this so often. Have you ever thought this to yourself, that clients would prefer to hire a mid-size or a large consultancy with a name brand instead of an independent consultant? Or you might be saying to yourself, my industry doesn't work this way, or my region of the world doesn't work this way. So often I hear that when we talk about best practices or strategies you could leverage for your independent consulting business, and you say something to the effect of, well, it doesn't work that way where I live, or it doesn't work that way with the types of clients I work with, or it doesn't work for startups. It might work for larger size companies. Like those kinds of things might sound really familiar to you. And ultimately, we arrive at the conclusion that we can't control these external factors. And so we kind of feel boxed in, right? So ask yourself as we're going through today's episode, where I would pause the episode and really write down for yourself, where does your business feel out of control? In what ways do your business results feel out of your control? Do any of those examples I say resonate with you? And are there others where you feel as though you don't have ultimate control over your business results, that something or someone is ultimately in control of your business results? It's really important. It's really important to understand and identify this for yourself, because this is where you are getting stuck if you're not creating the results that you're looking for. Or maybe you're having great results in your business, but you know that you have more potential. Understanding where you feel your results are out of your control is incredibly important. Okay, so now that you've identified where you might be thinking, in what ways, I should say, in what ways you are thinking that your business results are out of your control, let's talk about the impact of this. So often, when we think that we're at the mercy of something, we're at the mercy of the economy, we're at the mercy of a client making a decision or not, then it creates frustration or worry, right? That's so common, where we worry about, where is our revenue going to come from? How are we going to create a stable and steady and secure income for ourselves? That worry can start to really weigh on you. And then you start second guessing. You start wondering, are you cut out for this? You start wondering if you know what you're doing, or if clients really want what you have to offer. And then you start operating off of this self doubt. So you're still working. I know that you're not giving up, but when you're operating off of self doubt, when you're approaching potential clients, when you're networking, when you're going through a needs assessment type process, when you're writing proposals, when you're operating off of self doubt, you end up watering down the way you're coming across. You don't come across as confidently. You end up limiting yourself in terms of the types of solutions that your brain may come up with for whatever problem you're trying to solve. And ultimately, you don't come across as confidently and as clearly, in as much of a convicted way as you're capable of. And then as a result, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, where you've let your thoughts about the economy or these external factors weigh you down and dilute your ability to be as effective as you can be. And ultimately, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy and you don't achieve your goals. Maybe entirely, or at least as quickly as you are capable of achieving them. That's the impact of thinking about these external factors and letting them water down and dilute your effectiveness. And ultimately, it becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, listen, this is going to be confronting, but at the end of the day, these are excuses. Talking about how the economy is bad is an excuse. Talking about why your clients won't do what other people's clients will do or agree to, or the type of pricing that they would agree to, is an excuse. Thinking of that this time of year is not when clients buy your consulting services is an excuse. These are all excuses. And I don't say this to make you feel bad. Of course, that's not why we're here. I say this because I want you to see that you have so much more control over your business than you're giving yourself credit for. We make excuses to make ourselves feel better. And that's what you're likely doing if you're saying to yourself, well, it's not the right time of year, or my pipeline isn't as strong as it could be because of the economy, or because of all of these external factors we've already touched on. We say these things to make ourselves feel better because we don't have the results that we're looking for. But that is a short-sighted approach in the sense that these excuses, while they might make you feel better in the short run, will certainly dilute your ability to be successful in the medium and long term, right? When we go about justifying the status quo, making ourselves feel better, thinking about all these external things that are limiting our ability to be successful, it might make us feel better in the moment, but it certainly isn't going to make us feel better in the long run, because as a result of these types of thought processes, the likelihood of being successful gets less and less. And the reason why I say these are excuses to justify the status quo and that it's ultimately all on you is, again, not to make you feel bad, although I am confronting you right now in hopefully the most productive way. So the reason why this is good news is because you have full control ultimately over creating the results that you want to create. When you take away the excuses, you can start to figure out other paths to getting what it is that you want. When you use the conditions and things that feel very factual or just observations to explain why your business looks the way that it does, or why your pipeline looks the way that it does, or your cash flow, or your revenue forecasts, when you use those external factors to quote unquote explain or justify why you're having the results that you're having, then you basically put yourself into a corner. When you take a step back and say, you know what? I'm making some excuses to justify the status quo. Not a problem. That's what humans are trained to do. But I'm going to start looking at, even despite these things being true, how do I still have control over my business? And that's really what we're looking for here. Now, let's take a step back because I really want to support what I'm saying here with some tangible facts. How do I know that what you might be saying to yourself is not the truth, that it's not the hard and fast rule of how things are, that it's not you just giving yourself the observations of the way things are working? How do I know this? And I'll tell you the reason why I know this is that I see examples of the opposite every single day in working with independent consultants. Let me give you some examples. The economy isn't good. That thought process that we have, which I guarantee you could go find a mountain of evidence to support your thought that the economy isn't good. There's also alternative evidence. For example, what I'm seeing right now is a lot of enterprise and mid-size, even startups, mostly enterprise and mid-size, using consultants to get around HR hiring freezes. The reason why I say less so in startups is because most of them don't have an HR department, right? So there's an example for you. When we say the economy isn't good and we think that means that then we'll be able to sell less as a consultant, I want to show you that the opposite is also true. That some mid-sized clients are leveraging consultants to get around hiring freezes. A second example, clients aren't buying this time of year. Let's look at where the opposite is true. Some are not. You're completely right, but some are. Let's not focus on the ones that aren't. Let's not try to find evidence for how we're correct. Let's go find the ones that are. Let's look at who is buying right now, even if it is to start an engagement in January. Again, if you're listening in the real time, ask yourself the opposite. Don't just take this for what it's worth to say, well, clients aren't buying this time of year. And so then you're stuck, right? Then you're stuck. If it's true and you're just making an observation that clients aren't buying this time of year, you might as well shut down your business for the next period of time and start back up again. But that's not how someone runs an effective business. If you were running a startup company, you wouldn't tell your team, your entire organization, just to take the last 6 or 8 weeks of the year off and start again next year. Don't do that to yourself. Figure out who might be buying, who's having a problem right now that is time sensitive, that's urgent. Who's looking ahead to say, I need to have a strong solution in place in January and needing your services? Or what organizations are looking ahead to say, you know what, I need to have an expert at my side so that I can hit the ground running in January. Let's get a contract in place. Let's not wait until January to figure this out. Go ask yourself those types of questions. Asking yourself the question of who isn't buying this time of year or why aren't clients buying this time of year, the answers to those questions are not valuable to you. They put you back into that corner we were talking about, where you have nowhere to go. The next example, my client type, like startups, they can't pay or they can't pay as much. I hear this so often. And you might be saying this to yourself just as if it were a fact. Oh, it's a fact, Melisa, that startups don't pay. Or it's a fact, Melisa, that usually startups would want to pay me in equity. I can tell you, in seeing consultants' businesses behind the scenes, that there's an incredibly large range of what startups are willing to pay, as an example. Some paying an effective rate of $950 an hour. This is real. This isn't me just giving you my thoughts. This is real behind the scenes data of what I see multiple consultants being able to charge, being able to price their services at. Again, I said effective rate, not hourly rate, effective rate, which means they're charging off of value and impact for those organizations. And even startups are willing to pay that because it's valuable to them. Again, I'm showing you that there are opposite examples that are also true, where you might think that your region of the world doesn't pay, or your type of ideal client doesn't pay as much as others, or whatever your excuse is, which might feel like just telling an observation, but it's an excuse in the sense of you justifying what you believe is true to make yourself feel better in the short term, which does you no good. It might make you feel better for a moment, but you and I both know that that is very fleeting. And it also keeps you stuck in creating the results that you're currently creating, which might look like an empty pipeline or not hitting your revenue goals, not being able to grow year over year. Let me give you the last example that I wanted to share with you. The statement that might feel like a fact, I can't control these external factors. I can't control the economy. I can't control if a client engages me or not. I can't control what my industry is willing to pay. That's such a common thought process. So many of us have it. But I can also tell you the opposite is true, because I see the examples in real life, in consulting businesses, because this is what I do every single day. And the opposite being true is that business owners find a way to create these results, to create predictability in their businesses. It doesn't mean that you can force, XYZ client to engage you at a certain rate or a certain type of pricing or in a certain time frame. I'm not saying that you can manhandle a given opportunity to make it a contract. That's not what I'm saying here. What I am saying to you is, when that particular potential client, for example, doesn't choose to engage you, that you're figuring out how to find one that does. And that you don't rely back on these excuses of, well, it's the economy or it's the time of year or whatever else you might be coming up with. So that's why this is so important. It's so important to recognize that these are excuses instead of observations. They're excuses instead of facts. They're excuses instead of the way the world works. They're excuses instead of you being smart about how your industry looks. And why it's such good news that they're excuses, because that means you have control over fixing them. You have control over redirecting a way around them. You have control over being able to have control in your business. So now that we've set the stage here, let's talk about the root cause of why we're doing this. And I've touched on it a little bit a minute ago, but at the end of the day, our brain is wired to prove ourselves right. So what happens is when we create a hypothesis in our brain, such as the economy is softer than it has been in the past, which, believe me, I know that there are many, many economic metrics out there that you could use to prove this right. Of course. But there's also the opposite side that can prove to you that it isn't 100% the case across the board. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for those little pieces where what you're thinking is not always the hard and fast rule, that it's not 100% the way that everything is working. That's what we're looking for. But to take a step back, our brains are wired to prove ourselves right. We want to be right. It creates a sense of safety. It even creates a little bit of dopamine when we're right. We love being right. Here's the example I love to give. And I may have given this on the podcast before. Think about this. If you're looking for a new car, you've decided that you want to have a new car, and maybe you're getting a different kind of car than you've had before, and you're out driving around. Have you noticed when you're in that kind of shopping mode, you more often see the type of cars that you are shopping for on the road than you normally do? It's because you're looking out for it. It's on your mind. It's something that you're thinking about. And your brain is looking for all this evidence of, oh, look, all these other people have this car too. Maybe it's a good choice. It's a simple example, but notice it. Or whatever other kind of scenario where you might be thinking about something and you notice that your brain starts really honing in on that and creating evidence for itself. Our brain is trained to scan for evidence that supports the way we're thinking. So the reason why I'm sharing this with you is this is the root cause. It's not a fact that the economy across the board, no exceptions, a fixed situation is bad. Or across the board, 100%, there are no clients engaging consultants at the end of the year during the holidays. Think about that. It's not ever 100%. This is the fact. This is just the way that it works. And so you want to be redirecting your brain to help you to see where you do have opportunity, where you are creating a hypothesis. Look and see, where are you creating a hypothesis where you think this is just an observation? This is just what's happening. These are just the trends that you're facing. This is just the way that things are working right now. Be really clear with yourself about what are those things that you are assessing, and then start to look for the evidence of how the opposite is true, because that's what opens up and unlocks for you the ability to problem solve, to find those clients that are hiring at this time of the year, to find those ideal clients who are willing to engage you as an independent consultant at the type of pricing that you want to be charging. When you know that this is fully in your control, that's what unlocks your ability to solve for it. If you continue to look for evidence of how you're right, you're just going to continue to box yourself in. And ultimately, when you do that, we could sit here and argue all day long. Are you right? Is the economy bad? Or is it a bad time of year? Or does your type of client not engage with what you do? We could sit here and argue all day long about if those things are true. And I'm sure you could give me a ton of evidence of how that is true. But that doesn't help you. That doesn't help you beyond just feeling good in the moment, right? That you're right. So we want to be noticing that what are those things that feel fixed, that just feel the way that the world is working, and help you to redirect those. Because the impact of not doing so means that you're boxing yourself in. And ultimately that you're abdicating control of your business results to those external factors. When you think that these things are just observations and that's just how it works, you're not leaving yourself any room to problem solve. And we want you to have that room to problem solve, because then you can start figuring out, okay, this wasn't working, so let me try something slightly different, versus just thinking that it's a fixed situation and making those excuses and justifications. So now what? Now that we've talked about how these external factors are not going to limit you and your ability to be successful, that even if it's true that the economy isn't as good as it could be, or even if it's true that your types of client generally aren't buying this time of year or paying the types of pricing that you want to be charging, even if some of that is true, which of course it is, let's redirect and help you to redirect so that you start to uncover where it isn't true. And so I shared with you when we first started this episode that I would give you a tool that you can use to do that. And the tool is what I call, and I've learned this from one of my coaches actually, is 100% responsibility. Here's the question you want to be asking yourself. If I'm 100% in control of my business, what does it tell me? If you're 100% in control of your results, then what? So for example, if you're 100%, if it's on you that you haven't sold work and it's not the economy's fault, then what? If it's on you that your pipeline isn't as strong as it could be, and it's not the fault of the time of year or the type of clients that you support or the region of the country, the world you live in, then what? Ask yourself, if you don't have enough leads, what can you test out to create more? Who needs the type of help? Get more granular in the types of problems that you solve and the approach you're taking to generate leads. If your leads aren't converting into opportunities, ask yourself, what small change can you make to make it more valuable for a potential buyer to want to discuss a potential engagement with you? Ask yourself, what shift could you be making to get them to start talking about an engagement versus picking your brain? And then go test that out and get excited about, okay, if I create more leads, I have more ways to test this out. Versus telling me and yourself, more importantly, well, Melissa, this is just the way it works. I'm hoping next year will be better. You might be in a situation where you're creating opportunities. You're having conversations with potential clients about engagements, but they're not closing. Instead of leaning on, well, it's a bad time of year to make a decision, ask yourself a higher quality question. What shift could you test out to move them to a yes? What could you be testing to increase your close rate? What small change might you make? It could be something like, okay, I'm going to start offering smaller engagements to start. Maybe just starting off with strategy type work, or we're creating a roadmap or a strategy map or something like that, and not trying to sell a full 6-month engagement. Or ask yourself, maybe there's some techniques I could use to get feedback earlier on and buy-in earlier on, instead of kind of going through a process where I'm gathering requirements and then giving them a proposal. And it feels a little bit more of a 2-step process instead of embedding the client in throughout the process and getting their buy-in as I go, as an example. Figure out what you want to try to wherever you're getting stuck, instead of trying to attribute the issues you're having in your business to external factors. Switch it over and put it all on yourself, in the sense of, if you've got 100% responsibility over your results, what is that telling you? And then what kinds of shifts in your business do you want to start testing out? So now that we have established that while there are external factors that may make running our business more challenging at times than other times, ultimately, you have control over your business results. You're the owner of your business. You're the managing partner of your business. You're responsible for creating revenue for yourself and for keeping your pipeline full and for hitting your revenue goals, even when the external factors might not be as optimal as you would want them to be. That is your responsibility. And when you start thinking about it differently, where you stop thinking about and searching for all the external factors that are weighing you and your business results down and start looking at, even if these things are true, what else can I be doing to create that control in my business? Even if those things are true partially, what techniques and strategies and approaches and habits and routines can I be implementing in my business to get the results that I want? Instead of trying to just prove yourself right that there are all these external reasons why you're not being as successful as you could be, start figuring out how do you take control over your own business results and leveraging that tool that I gave you, which is 100% responsibility. So as we pull this episode together, it may have been a bit confronting, but that's why we're here. That's why we're here. Not to make you feel bad or to point the finger or anything like that, but more so to help you to see that you do have control over your business, that there are other consultants who are successful regardless of the external factors, and they have very similar backgrounds to you. Look at all of those as opportunities to say, you know what, other consultants are being successful regardless of those external factors. And there's nothing standing in my way that I can't have those same types of results. So as you think about today's episode, the 3 steps that I would recommend to you to go put this into action are: number 1, I'll remind you to go take that consultant's business health assessment. It's at icassessment.com. We'll put the link in the show notes so that you have a really good understanding of where your baseline is right now in this moment and your areas of opportunity that you have control over. The second is to implement that 100% responsibility tool that we talked about today. Go think about, okay, if I'm fully in control of my results, and when I state these facts, like the economy is bad, that's an excuse. So what else could be true? And start going about identifying adjustments that you want to make to your business process so that you can test those out and start getting back on track and creating momentum for yourself. And then finally, this can be challenging to do on your own. It can be challenging to figure out, where are these blind spots? Where is something you're leaning on really not a fact when it feels so factual? That's where coaching comes in. I can help you. I can help you to see where your blind spots are. I can help you to see where you're getting in your own way. I can help you to see where you're making excuses for the status quo when there are other options available for you. So if you're interested in exploring if coaching is a good fit for you, grab a spot on my calendar. You can find it at consultmelisa.com. My name is spelled Melisa. Only one L, only one S, and grab a spot on my calendar. And I look forward to meeting with you and seeing if it's a good fit to work with me as your coach. All right. Thank you for tuning in today, and I will see you again next week. Take care. Thanks for joining me this week on the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. If you liked today's episode, I have 3 quick next steps for you. First, click subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to make sure you don't miss future episodes. Next, leave me a review in your podcast app so other independent consultants can find and benefit too. And finally, to put the ideas from today's episode into action, head over to melissalieberman.com for the show notes and more resources to help you grow your consulting practice from your first few projects into a full-fledged business. See you next week.